And then Boston would have had this. It would have been a wrap for Boston coming out on top in the series for sure. So.
And Austin, you mentioned Jokic, but have you guys caught any of the Lakers Nuggets games?
I've watched bits and pieces of it. I haven't been able to too much as I've watched the Eastern Conference Finals. But I think the biggest thing to note was that it's kind of the opposite with the Celtics and the Heat series. Is when you watch the Lakers play, it constantly feels like the Lakers are they're always like two or three possessions behind, even when they're not. Like they kind of play that way. And I remember the end of game one, I was able to catch, and they were down five with like 20 some seconds to go. And they were just hacking up threes, trying to make up a 5 point deficit in the last like 20 seconds. And then finally, they've like figured it out in the last 12 seconds when LeBron got stripped away at the end that, oh, we just needed two, then we can go play defense and come back. LA is the not the number one, but they're one of the better defensive teams like in the entire season. And they're probably the best defensive team maybe up there with Miami. You can make a good argument either way. That's left in these final four. Just rely on your defense. I know you're playing an offensive juggernaut, but when you're in the last 30 seconds of a game, you need to go to what your strength is and not play Nugget ball. And that's how the Nuggets won 2 games at home, is because the Lakers had to keep changing up and try to think that they were down 5 possessions when they just need to play short ball, play defense on one possession, come back and see if they can just eat it back.
What do you think, Josh?
You know, it's hard for the Lakers to stop the Nuggets when Jamal Murray's popping off. I think that was game two. Jamal Murray had a big performance. Jokic is playing the way he is. I think I saw down the stretch MPJ was hitting his shots, and everybody knows that he has never seen a shot that he doesn't like. So that's amazing for the Nuggets. Their shooters are hitting on all cylinders, and it just seems like I haven't really been catching the beginning of those games, but correct me if I'm wrong. The Nuggets kind of they get out to a lead, and then the Lakers are trying to play catch up the whole time, right? So
To be off the top of my head, I don't know if the Lakers have had a lead in this in the entire series so far.
Okay, so and I think I remember somebody saying on TV that they were like, "Oh wow, Jokic didn't really have that good of a game," and then they're like, "Oh wait, never mind, he just recorded his 7th triple double of the whole playoffs." It's just like it's crazy what he can do. He definitely should have been MVP, and I definitely feel like you can count the Nuggets in the finals already. It's going to be tough for them to be taken down for sure.
Yeah, and it's tough because to me, the Lakers on paper are a better team because they have two superstar players and they have a plethora of role players that are doing Anthony Davis, LeBron James.
Old LeBron James.
I still think LeBron's that guy, but
I mean that's fair, but he just peters off at the end of games or like the end of quarters.
You see him smoke that dunk?
That is
yeah,
true.
I did see that.
That
But
was pretty bad.
Just go
the
lay up,
Lakers,
son, off the glass. That's all that counts. Get two however you can. Doesn't have to be
Yep.
pretty.
have you guys seen how well Rui Hachimura has been playing for the Lakers? He was 8 of 11 in game one and then 8 of 10 in game two. So I think Darvin Ham could figure out maybe a way to get him more shots. But I think the biggest adjustment with this series so far, and I saw a little bit of it in game two, and like you guys, I didn't catch the entire games. But what the Lakers were doing was they would take Anthony Davis off of Jokic and have him guard Aaron Gordon, who can't shoot threes. And so basically you have Anthony Davis playing free safety. So if Jokic gets past his guy, you have AD meeting him at the rim. So I'm wondering if that's something we're going to see more of in the rest of this series, or if it's just going to kind of continue to be the Jokic domination. Because I think Jokic is the best player in the series, but the Lakers have the best team.
I made the argument during, our previous wing night editions when we were in person, we were sitting around a table that I said in the Philly-Boston series, if you're Philly, you might consider resting Embiid and Harden in game 5, because by the time that you might need them in game 7, they won't have anything left to give. It somewhat showed its case. They just played really poorly that day, right? I'm thinking it might be the same thing in logically what the Lakers are trying to do in making sure Anthony Davis can go as long as he can in this series. Because if you have him trying to match up with Jokic in the first 2 games in Denver, in high altitude, you have a 1-day travel back to LA. They might have predicted that, hey, at best, we can split the series, get 1-1, and then head to LA, tied up. At worst, we're down 2-0 in this situation, Tate, like what you just said, how they've set themselves up, they can now win their next 2 games because Anthony Davis isn't hurt and he's at least as well rested as he could be playing 2 games in Denver because that high altitude is a lot tougher to be able to recover from on a 1-day trip back to LA. And on top of that, too, you have to imagine that, it's Anthony Davis. They have to be worried about when some part of his body is going to fall off.
Right. Yeah. Speaking on the high altitude in Denver, do you think that's as much of a factor into these games as everybody says it is?
100%. Yes. 1,000,000%. So I grew up in the Panhandle, which is like 4,000 feet elevation, so not quite a mile high. But we used to play like high school football, and we would come to like central Nebraska, being one of the smaller Class B schools. We would travel quite a bit. We would play like a Grand Island Northwest, or we would play Aurora. And when we came out here, it was like not saying it's easier to breathe, but
Right.
we didn't notice a difference. But when those schools would come to us, you could tell by the end of the first quarter that like it is an adjustment. It takes a little bit of time to like get used to it. You're not ready for it. It's a drier condition too. So when you're in and out of meetings during the day or you're just walking about in your hotel and doing regular things, you're not used to how dry the air will be, especially when it's getting warmer outside. So sun kind of hits you a little bit different. It takes a little bit more energy out of you. And that altitude, it's sometimes not affecting you in the game, but it's how you recover from it too. So I think a
Gotcha.
lot of it mostly is mental. I don't know how much of the physicality stuff it is affecting the Lakers, but if you get the thought in your head, man, we are playing a mile high, aren't you? You're probably already done for.
Yeah, that's wow. That's actually so yeah, you're originally from Sydney, correct?
Yeah,
Or
right.
yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I didn't even know the elevation was higher over there than like central Nebraska. That's yeah, okay. All right. I guess you know from firsthand experience. I digress.
I'm gonna say local expert
Yeah,
here. That's what I can't
I
play.
need to
I
sit
can't
down,
play
man.
sports, but I know my elevation facts. I'll do that.
Yeah. Would you guys mind if we transition into kind of like something more personal about ourselves in case if the audience knows one of us and then decides to click on this podcast and they just so happen to not know the other two people.
Are you
So
plugging
Austin,
small ball right now? Is that what you're about to do?
what's up?
You're about to plug small ball right now, aren't you?
No, that was my plan for later on in the show. So yeah, you thanks for spoiling that. But so so Austin, back in high school, did you so what sports did you do? Did you okay, did you say you swam in high school or what
Yeah,
was
I would swim. I would swim during the summers until I got too old to do it because it wasn't a school sport in Sydney. It was
right?
just like the summer, whatever, like rec thing. And then I played football poorly, but I was on the team. And after that, like, just wasn't athletic enough to really make a difference anywhere else. So just got into talking about sports, and it turned out to be a lot better for me. So I can watch and talk. I just can't play. We just, I
That's
will
awesome.
discuss, and I'll try to make sure I know what I'm talking about because that's the thing. If I'm open and up front that I'm unathletic, makes it much easier. Not like Tate, who said he can beat Tim Tebow, because now everyone's going to claim they're going to call him out more often. I'm just the guy who
Right.
can
Yeah.
play the ball.
Yeah, and talking about sports on the radio, like that's a nice pocket to get into if you're actually like good at it. And you're like I joke about it all the time and like boost you up, but you're honestly like you're real solid at your job. And I don't know if I could do what you're doing, man. So props to you. Tate, I know you're a southern boy, born and raised, lived in Arkansas and Fairfax, Missouri. What sports did you enjoy playing when you were younger?
Yeah, I apologize for spacing out for a bit, by the way. I actually had to upgrade our Zoom so that we could record for more than like 20 minutes.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Are
but
we
so
good?
my background in sports is I did track, football, basketball, baseball growing up, kind of the main, I would call it the big four. in Nebraska at least. I would say my best sport was probably baseball, to be honest, but I hated playing baseball. So I played that until my sophomore year of high school. And then I was a pitcher. So I had surgery on my elbow. That kind of ended baseball for me. Basketball, I also played till sophomore year. I would have not been good at all. Probably wouldn't have even been on the varsity team at Kearney High, but it was my favorite sport. So other than that, I've just played men's league, rec league, whatever. And like Austin, I love watching sports and talking about them. So, and then what about
Yeah.
you, Josh? You kind of have I would say
So
the best pedigree out of all of us.
it's nothing really special, honestly. So I grew up playing Class C basketball in Nebraska. I grew up in Minden and then later transferred um, to Cozad my senior year and committed to a D3 school right after senior year. And we could get into um, my opinion on basketball players and athletes committing to D3 and NAIA when they have like JUCO offers on the table